Tonight the sun will go down, and you will not think about it at all. You will flip a switch, light will fill the room, the dark outside will stay outside, and you will go on with your evening as if the sun never mattered in the first place. But for almost the entire span of human existence, that switch didn't exist. When the light left, the world changed completely, and your ancestors had to know how to survive inside that change every single night for hundreds of thousands of years. You don't know how to do that anymore. Almost nobody does. There was a skill, a real one. Not a superstition, not a folk tale, an actual trainable human ability that let your ancestors move, hunt, gather, and stay alive in total darkness. And somewhere in the last 100 years, humanity simply stopped using it. What was it? And what happened when the world stopped needing it? Start with the obvious question. What did the dark actually mean before electricity? It meant danger, yes. Predators moved at night. But it also meant something stranger, and it meant a second version of daily life, one your ancestors were built to handle just as well as daylight. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying the Juhuanzi people of the Kalahari, one of the last groups on Earth to live largely without artificial light. She recorded something remarkable. Daytime conversation among the Juhuanzi was almost entirely practical. Complaints, gossip, negotiations over resources. But at night around the fire, the entire tone of speech changed. Stories came out, myths, songs, long imaginative tales about ancestors and animals and the shape of the world. Darkness wasn't just endured, it was used. The firelight hours were, in a very real sense, a different mode of being human. Wiesner's research suggests that this nightly shift, from practical daytime talk to imaginative nighttime storytelling, may have been one of the primary ways early human cultures transmitted values, history, and social bonds across generations, which means the dark didn't just test your ancestors' survival skills, it built their minds. But surviving the physical dark required something else too. Something your body still technically has, even though you've probably never used it on purpose. It's called dark adaptation, and it's a slow, biological process your eyes go through when light disappears. Here's the plain version. Your eyes have two types of light receptors. Cones handle color and detail in bright light. Rods handle motion and shape in low light, but they're colorblind and slow to switch on. It takes your rods roughly 20 to 30 minutes to fully activate after the lights go out. Your ancestors knew this instinctively, even without a word for photoreceptors. They knew that if you stepped out of a firelit hut into open darkness, you were half blind for the first several minutes. So they waited. They let their eyes adjust before making any real decision. Hunters preparing for pre-dawn treks would sit in darkness beforehand, deliberately to arrive at full night vision before they needed it. You have never done this, have you? Think about the last time you walked outside at night. You probably had a phone in your pocket, glowing at you every few minutes. Every glance at that screen resets your rod adaptation completely. Your eyes never get the 20 minutes they need, which means, functionally, modern humans experience less true night vision than a person living 12,000 years ago, not because our eyes evolved backward, but because we never give them the chance to switch on. That's the first piece of the forgotten skill. Full-body patience with darkness, long enough for your biology to catch up. But seeing in the dark was only step one. The bigger skill was staying oriented inside it. Without streetlights, without house numbers, without glowing exit signs, how did anyone find their way home at night? This is where things get genuinely strange because the answer isn't really about the eyes at all. It's about the ears, the skin, and the feet. Researchers studying traditional wayfinding among groups like the Inuit and various Pacific Islander navigators have documented something called sensory substitution, the brain's ability to re-weight its trust in different senses depending on which one is most reliable in the moment. In daylight, vision dominates almost everything. In darkness, that dominance collapses, and the brain rapidly shifts weight onto hearing, touch, and even smell. Your ancestors could recognize a path by the specific feel of the ground under bare feet. They could track direction by the angle of wind against one side of the face. They could judge distance to a cliff or a riverbank by subtle changes in the way sound echoed back at them, a crude, unconscious form of echolocation that some researchers believe was far more developed in pre-industrial humans than in you. Do you know what the ground under your own feet feels like right now? Not the shoe, the ground. Most people can't answer that. And it's not because your nerve endings disappeared, it's because you stopped listening to them. This is the second piece of the forgotten skill, full sense navigation, where your body reads 100 tiny signals at once instead of waiting for your eyes to hand you the answer. Now here's where it gets even more interesting, because darkness didn't just demand physical skill, it demanded a completely different relationship with fear itself. You've probably felt it, that specific primal unease of being somewhere dark and unfamiliar. Psychologists sometimes call this nyctophobia when it becomes extreme, but in a mild form, almost every human feels some version of it. And for a long time, researchers assumed this fear was simply irrational, a glitch left over from evolution. More recent thinking suggests something different. The fear of darkness isn't a malfunction. It's a feature, a survival prompt telling you to slow down, sharpen your senses, and move carefully. The problem isn't that the fear exists. The problem is that modern humans never learned what to do with it. Your ancestors weren't fearless in the dark. They were trained to function inside the fear. There's a difference. Children in many traditional societies were gradually introduced to nighttime tasks, first with adults, then alone, in small increasing steps, specifically to build comfort with darkness before it became a survival necessity. It wasn't about eliminating fear, it was about practicing competence alongside it. You, on the other hand, likely encountered total, functional darkness for the first time as an adult, unprepared, and probably hated it. So you avoided it, which means the skill never had a chance to form. That's the third piece. Not fearlessness, trained competence inside fear. But maybe the strangest twist in this whole story isn't about seeing or moving or fear at all. It's about sleep. For years, historians assumed that pre-industrial humans slept the same way you do, one long, unbroken block, from bedtime to morning. Then historian A. Roger Ekirch went digging through centuries of old diaries, court records, and medical texts and found something almost nobody expected. Before artificial light became widespread, many people didn't sleep in one continuous stretch at all. They slept in two segments, a first sleep, lasting a few hours after dark, then a period of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night, sometimes an hour or more, used for prayer, conversation, sex, or simply lying awake in the dark, thinking. Then a second sleep until morning. This wasn't insomnia. It was normal. Ekirch found references to it so casual, so unremarkable, that it clearly wasn't considered unusual at all and just part of how a night unfolded. Sleep researcher Charles Cheisler's work on circadian rhythms adds a biological layer to this. Human sleep cycles are extremely sensitive to light exposure, and in a world without artificial lighting, the long stretch of darkness, often 10 or 12 hours in winter, was simply too long for one uninterrupted sleep cycle to fill. The body naturally split it in two. So the forgotten skill wasn't only about hunting or walking through the dark, it was about occupying it, sitting quietly inside hours of night that modern life has completely erased and being at peace there, awake, without a screen, without a light, without anything to do but exist in the dark for a while. When was the last time you did that? Just existed in darkness, awake, with nothing to fill it? Probably never. Because the moment you wake up at 3 a.m. now, you assume something is wrong. You check the time. You check your phone. You try to force yourself back to sleep as fast as possible because lying awake in the dark feels like failure. Your ancestors would have found that reaction completely bizarre. To them, the quiet, dark hour wasn't a malfunction to fix. It was simply part of the night, as normal as the sun going down in the first place. So here's the full shape of the skill that disappeared. It wasn't one single ability. It was a whole coordinated relationship with darkness, patient eyes that were allowed to adjust, a body that read the ground and the wind and the echoes instead of demanding a picture, a mind trained to function calmly inside fear instead of fleeing from it, and a nervous system comfortable enough with the dark to simply rest inside it, awake, without needing to fill the silence. All four pieces working together every single night for hundreds of thousands of years. And then in the space of about a century, all four pieces became optional, then unnecessary, then, for most of you, completely gone.